Over the weekend, President Biden took credit for the progress in the Mideast. Watch this.
For years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. Our approach has shifted the balance of power in the Middle East. Through this combination of support for our partners, sanctions, and diplomacy, and targeted military force when necessary, we now see new opportunities opening up for the people of Syria and for the entire region.
Morgan Ortagus joins us. Morgan, it seems to me that Russia and Iran are losing ground in the Mideast, and that is Israel and Trump's doing. I don't think President Biden should be taking the credit here. What say you?
It is an impressive level of self-delusion for President Biden and Jake Sullivan to think that they had anything to do with the historic defeats of Hamas, Hezbollah, and of course now the actions that we see of Assad being chased out of Syria and going to Russia. In fact, this administration did not enforce any of the sanctions on the books against Iran or against Syria. What do we know even happened in the last few years? It was the Biden administration who, instead of putting pressure on Assad and the regime, they were actually working with Arab leaders in the region to normalize Assad. What do we see from the Biden team in the last week? We saw statements calling for de-escalation and even an attempt to try, again, to continue to normalize Assad whenever the rebels were clearly on the advance. So you could basically take everything that the Biden team has done in the Middle East over the past 4 years, do the opposite, which is what Israel did, and get to the outcome. The only reason that we're seeing the advancements that we see in the Middle East against Russia, against Iran, against the terrorists, is because Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel effectively ignored Biden. They did not operate out of fear. They did not operate out of fear of escalation, and they have been destroying their enemies. And this is what happens when you reward friends and allies and go after your enemies. I also think we have to give large credit to President Donald Trump being reelected. I can tell you every terrorist in that region remembers what he did in 2020 to Qasem Soleimani, and they're all scared.
Next one. On Truth Social, Trump called for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Here's the quote. Zelenskyy and Ukraine would like to make a deal and stop the madness. They have ridiculously lost 400,000 soldiers and many more civilians, end quote. Morgan, do you think we're moving now quickly towards some kind of ceasefire in Ukraine?
I think so. It's clearly what the American people want, and especially what the Europeans want as well. This, of course, President Trump's statement comes after meeting with Zelenskyy, and so you know that this is something that they had talked about. Zelensky's been talking for months about how he knows that they need sort of an end game. They need to get to a negotiated settlement like every other war ends. So when people ask me, well, how does this all end? It was going to end with either Kamala Harris or President Trump, Donald Trump, negotiating a settlement between the Russians and the Ukrainians, just like every other war. So you're going to tell me that the people, Biden and Harris, who are responsible for American hostages still being held in Gaza for over a year, we're going to negotiate a better ending to Russia and Ukraine than President Trump and his team? I don't buy that for a minute.
Gotcha. Morgan Ortagus, thanks for joining us. I know we'll see a lot of you in the near future. Thanks a lot.